Hey, welcome to Left Hook. I'm Scott. Today we're going to be talking about Trump's blatant corruption. I'm going to discuss the history of corruption that Trump has. So, Biden was a puppet. I think we kind of figured that out from recent news stories about his mental decline. Now, he was a puppet because he was in his decline and didn't really know any better as time went on. That's not an excuse, but one could argue that while he was inept and arrogant, it's hard to find real evidence that he was, in the traditional sense, actually corrupt, despite what certain right wingers online would love to say about a certain laptop his son owned. Uh, Trump, on the other hand, despite claiming in the 2017 election that he was too rich to be bought, showed from the very beginning of his first presidency that he has a price tag that can be paid by any interested party to get whatever they want. He shows again and again that he only cares about two things: the glory and the prestige that comes with being the president, without having to do any of the actual work that comes along with that position, and to be richer and richer, regardless of what he needs to do to get that way. Now, let's talk a little bit about how Trump shows that he's the most corrupt, bought and paid for puppet president to ever sit in the White House. First off, let's go way back to whenever Trump had a judgment against him for literally stealing from his own charity. So this is the office of Letitia James. Trump pays court-ordered $2 million for illegally using Trump Foundation funds. So he was forced to pay more than $2 million in a court-ordered damages to 8 different charities for illegally misusing charitable funds of the Trump Foundation for political purposes. The statement says, not only has the Trump Foundation been shut down for misconduct, but the president has been forced to pay $2 million for misusing charitable funds for his own political gain. Charities are not a means to an end, which is why these damages speak to the president's abuse of power and represent a victory for not-for-profits that follow the law. And the funds have finally gone to where they deserve, 8 credible charities. Now, that's bad enough. But whenever you see a detailed breakdown of some of the things that he stole this money from the charity to do, it's laughable. What's your favorite act of misusing or stealing funds from charity on the list of violations? Number 1, when Trump had his 2020 campaign, put the foundation's name on promotional materials and ceremonial checks related to fundraisers that he as a candidate was hosting. When he used $100,000 of Trump Foundation money, raised almost entirely from other people, to settle an ordinance dispute with his Mar-a-Lago club vacation home that they were having with the city of Palm Beach. So he used the money to settle a lawsuit with the city of Palm Beach for his own personal club. When he used $157,000 of Trump Foundation money to settle a legal dispute with a man who'd won $1 million hole-in-one prize during an event held by another charity at Trump's golf course in New York, which the outside charity was purchased hole-in-one insurance and was responsible for denying the man his prize. So they tried to stiff this guy on $1 million prize, and Trump had to end up paying him $157,000 and just went ahead and just took that out of a charity to do so. Classy. When he used $25,000 of the charity's money to make a donation to the political group that then supported Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, familiar name, at the same time as Bondi was considering whether to sue Trump University for defrauding its students. Probably know all about the Trump University scandal, but we'll go into that another time. Bondi ended up, for some reason, after her political group received $25,000 from Trump's charity, decided not to sue him over that. Weird, huh? That probably was the beginning of the resume that Trump loved for making her attorney general. Number 5, whenever he used the Trump Foundation to pay $5,000 to put an advertisement for Trump International Hotel in D.C. into a program distributed at another charity fundraising event. Just good. So advertising for his hotel using charity money. $10,000 of Trump Foundation money to buy a painting of himself that hung in one of his resorts in Miami. Bear in mind, you could tell this guy was not on the level whenever he refused to reveal his tax returns. So many of the reasons why he might not have revealed his tax returns, which no other president's ever refused to do, ever. Every other president has revealed their tax returns. You're going to find that Trump's got a lot of firsts in this list. First one not to do that, most likely to try to hide how rich he actually is, or was at the time. That he may not pay or hasn't paid his fair share of taxes, which they kind of proved later that he wasn't paying his taxes properly, which we'll get into that in a moment. Another checkbox on the corruption list. $73 million refund. We learned that Trump had applied for a $73 million refund in 2010 in response to this request. Trump may have loans to foreign countries or individuals, which would potentially and probably do compromise him in his role as commander in chief. And he probably doesn't donate much or anything to charity. Just a number of potential reasons why he might not have wanted to reveal his tax returns. Next thing, not divesting from his holdings. The emoluments clause keeps you from being able to benefit from being in office. It also stipulates that you should divest from any holdings that could potentially benefit you directly because of your role as president. Well, Trump businesses have received millions in foreign payments while he was in office. It's the way that he's done this is actually pretty ridiculous and pretty obvious. So Trump has repeatedly and willingly violated the U.S. Constitution by allowing his businesses to accept millions of dollars from the most corrupt nations in the world. His four businesses owned by Trump's family conglomerate received $7.8 million in payments in total from 20 countries during his first 4 years in the White House. It added that those payments probably represented a fraction of foreign payments to the Republican president and his family during that time period. The Foreign Emoluments Clause of the U.S. Constitution bars the acceptance of gifts from foreign states without congressional consent. It says here, the limited records that there was a committee that investigated this, and the limited records the committee obtained showed that while Trump was in office, he received more than $5.5 million from the Chinese government and Chinese state-owned enterprises. He was, as well as millions more from 19 other foreign governments, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar. Qatar? Really? We'll get back to that nation. I think most people know what's coming up. United Arab Emirates, Malaysia, 4 other countries, etc., etc., etc. The government making these payments sought specific foreign policy outcomes from President Trump and his administration. Each dollar accepted violated the Constitution's strict prohibition on payments from foreign governments. I mean, it should be obvious and clear. Now, what I find amazing, not only is this obvious pay for play with other governments, but look at what he did just to profit specifically from being president. Trump overcharged Secret Service by 300% for accommodations at his hotels. Now, this is ripping off the American people directly. So, according to this report, he billed government for Secret Service accommodations at his hotels many times over what other guests were charged. Now, keep this in mind, the reason why he's able to do this is the Secret Service is required to follow around and protect the president. A large entourage of Secret Service and other government employees who were required to stay near the president. So he chose, because he's still invested in his properties, to have these Secret Service and other government employees stay at his facilities, where they're paying his companies to stay there. And he's overcharging them up to triple what he would charge anyone else. Not only did the former President Trump D.C. hotel routinely charge the Secret Service more than the government rate, it frequently charged the Secret Service more than it did other patrons, including members of a royal family and a Chinese business interest. His son had actually gone on and said that the employees for the Secret Service stay at our properties for free, which was an obvious and blatant public lie. He enriched himself by overcharging government employees for staying in his own hotels, knowing they couldn't do anything else. If you think this was just because the rooms were so amazing, when he sold the lease to the 263 room hotel known as the Old Post Office Building in 2022 to a Florida-based investment group, CGI Merchant Group, the hotel reopened as the Waldorf Astoria chain in that area in January 2023. Spending by Republican groups there cratered. according to the report by Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. So when there was no benefit to paying exorbitant prices there by foreign, if you're a foreign government, when there was no additional taxpayer money to siphon off by forcing Secret Service and government employees to stay in these hotels, they couldn't be profitable. They collapsed after Trump sold them off. Even more recently, during the campaign in 2024, Trump was actually sued and successfully by the state of New York for $364 million for defrauding the IRS and banks by either inflating or undervaluing the value of his properties. Because they found that what he had done was he had inflated the value of his properties on paper whenever he would give those values over to the banks to try to get loans against the banks. And that would help him secure larger amounts of money at lower interest rates by lying about his property's value. And then he would, when it came time to report the properties to the IRS to be taxed on them, to pay property tax, he would severely undervalue them so that he didn't have to pay as much. And when it didn't take a lot for once they got a hold of the paperwork for the government to look at the IRS paperwork and the bank paperwork and go, something doesn't add up here. So it was a pretty slam dunk case for the state. Again, I don't know if he's ever actually been made to pay it, but it's just another instance of his blatant corruption. I mean, he's the most dishonest, and this is saying something because American politicians are incredibly dishonest, nearly to the one. But he's the most dishonest ever. I mean, there's just he's the LeBron James of corruption when it comes to comparing him to other presidents and other politicians. Period. What drives me crazy is that conservatives have lost their mind for years over Hunter's laptop, with months of hearings that they put together, tying up news and government committees, ending in no real credible evidence whatsoever. But they didn't bat an eye whenever his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, who he had enlisted to negotiate diplomatic relations in the Middle East, right after President Trump left office, received $2 billion in investments to manage for Saudi Arabia. Remember we talked about Saudi Arabia earlier and how they bribed Trump by paying exorbitant fees to stay in his hotels. Often, by the way, without actually showing up to stay. Very often they would just pay for the rooms, sometimes hundreds of rooms at a time, and then very few of them would actually show up to stay if anyone did. Blatant bribery. So Kushner was given a $2 billion investment despite the fact that he had no experience with private equity whatsoever. His company, Affinity Partners, raised over $3 billion in capital, with about $2 billion of that coming from the Saudi Public Investment Fund, which is essentially their slush fund in Saudi Arabia. In fact, the Crown Prince actually personally intervened to approve the investment and overruled a panel of investors who called the sum that they were going to invest unsatisfactory in all aspects. Essentially, the other Saudi investors there said, why are we giving this bonehead $2 billion to invest when he has no experience doing it? And the Crown Prince went, yeah, y'all know why, right? I mean, y'all know why. So he had developed a close relationship with the prince while he served as Trump, the White House advisor and a diplomat, helping to improve a $110 million weapons sale to Saudi Arabia after it had faced public backlash from the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. That's, if you guys get a chance to look up the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, that was disturbing. Oversight committees, especially Jamie Raskin, who's a Democrat, had continuously pushed for a committee to investigate Kushner's deal. You know, the same way that James Comer and the Republicans tried to invest Hunter Biden's laptop. They did that for forever. Kushner never even got one committee hearing. He was lucky if any Republicans would ever even mention Kushner's name or the fact that he got this investment. Domestically, Trump has used his influence to gain favor with oligarchs and billionaires in the United States. Jeff Bezos owned Amazon, signed a $40 million deal to take on the rights to Melania Trump's biography, to her story, because there's such incredible demand for that, and $40 million worth of demand, of course. Bezos was showing signs that he was already capitulating even before Trump took office. During the campaign, he directed the Washington Post, which he owns, to pull their endorsement of Kamala Harris, which the Post has been endorsing candidates for president for decades. This was the first time he intervened. Think what you will about the Post actually endorsing a candidate. Personally, I don't think news organizations should be endorsing either candidate. They should be reporting on everyone and calling balls and strikes. But Bezos personally intervened on the behalf of the Trump campaign to pull the Kamala Harris endorsement. He later posted his warm congratulations to Trump and donated $1 million to his inaugural festivities. Yeah, which we all know definitely got spent on inaugural festivities and didn't go into Trump's personal bank account. Of course. He also nixed a political cartoon which was going to show Bezos and other tech billionaires in supplicant mode as they thrust bags of money at a Trump statue. Check it out. Anyway, so that leads us up to the current day. And I'm going to bring Jenna on to discuss amazingly blatant corruption from the meme coin that he launched right before he went into office. And then now the latest in the corruption train of the $400 million plane from Qatar, the essentially flying palace, as they've put it, that he just accepted. The point that I want to make here before I even bring Jenna on is people, if you wonder why people accept this corruption from Trump, because I often do. I often wonder, how can you see all these things from all the way back in 2017, while he was running for president then, all the way up to everything he's done in between. How do people accept this? And honestly, I think it comes down to one simple thing. He does it in the open. I think that normal people, the everyday person, when they know they're doing something wrong, they try to hide it. They try to slip it under the rug. They try to be sly about it. That's what certainly most politicians do. Well, Trump doesn't do that. He hides his corruption under this plain-speaking bluntness where he says what he's doing is fine and just says it over and over again to the point where it makes you believe it. He's just so open and doesn't try to hide, only justify what he's doing. And I really think that's why his supporters don't just accept it, but they encourage it and they celebrate his corruption as a feature, like he's getting one over on his enemies every time he does something corrupt. Every time he personally benefits, despite the fact that it could be at the same time hurting them. Now, with very few exceptions, Trump has no ideology, I think, outside of making himself more wealthy and just getting praise. So he's just an open vessel for oligarchs and foreign countries and Christian fundamentalists, that they can just pour their desires through him to get their agendas enacted. And that's how he's a puppet. You know, I mean, for example, he took $270 million from Elon, then opened the doors to all American sensitive information, gave him access to gut agencies that were holding him accountable, so that he could get a get out of jail free card for his own actions and profit much more than the $270 million off of that investment in the president. So while the Trump administration and Musk try to get us to look the other way, saying that they're eliminating fraud, supposedly by everyday Americans, like welfare fraud, Social Security, and Medicare fraud, Medicaid fraud. Federal employees that are suckling off the government teat while bringing no real value, according to them, and accusing migrants of supposedly cheating the system and stealing jobs. What Trump is really doing is shifting the blame for fraud and waste from himself and his corrupt, elite, decadently rich friends, and turning the working class against each other. And we can't point up at the real crooks if we're pointing at our neighbors and the vulnerable instead. Hey guys, if you liked that video, please like and subscribe, leave a comment. Doesn't cost you anything and it really helps the channel out. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Keep fighting.